This is the Hotwoods Fish N Sport 510 Compact Pontoon Boat. This boat will ship as shown with the bench seats and hardware, rear and front splash deck, 2 cup holders and rail pieces and hardware. You'll need a 7/16 ratchet or equivalent power tool and socket, and a 5/32 Allen wrench. As you can see, everything will be packaged together. You'll want to lay everything out and take inventory of parts and hardware before beginning. Included with the hardware package, you should have 36 handrail clamps, 36 1/4" by 1 1/4" carriage bolts, 24 U-bolts, and 84 1/4" lock nuts. Installing the handrails. Start by laying out your hardware. 1 U-bolt and 2 lock nuts for each position. The handrails will sit on the inside of the skirting, so you'll want the bolt heads of the U-bolts on the outside of the boat skirting. Hand tighten all of the U-bolts in place. This will make the assembly of the handrails go much quicker. Always put the bevel on the end rail to the center of the boat. Continue to set all of your handrails into the U-bolts. After all of the handrails are set, you can come back around the boat and tighten them. This can all be done with a ratchet and socket or power tool. If using power tools, be very careful not to over-tighten the nuts, as stainless steel can break. Also, make sure all of your U-bolts are straight when tightening, which will give an even fit all the way around, with the exception of the back handrails. You want to leave those loose for installation of the bench seat later on. Installing the front splash deck. The double splash deck always goes on the front of the Fish N Sport. You can tell the difference between the front and back because the motor mount is welded to the back. Make sure the edges are lined up evenly with the front of the boat. The U-bolts will be to the outside of the boat instead of the inside as with the handrails. When the splash deck handrails are installed, the ends sit on the pontoons. If you check the ends, there will be a plastic plug to protect the pontoon from scratches or dents. After the handrails are installed, you'll want to add the butterfly clamps. One of them attached to the boat handrail, and the other will attach the splash deck handrail to the boat handrail. The boat handrail clamp should be installed at the top of the rail where it begins to bend. The splash deck clamp should go up against the boat handrail clamp right below. Installing the rear splash deck. The rear splash deck is attached in the same way as the front. The exception would be that the Fish N Sport has the motor mount welded down on the rear of the boat. As seen in the video, Phil has lined up the edge of the splash deck with the inside U-bolt nut on both sides, which keeps it centered. As with the front splash deck, U-bolts go to the outside. Use the railings with the plastic caps on the end, and they should rest on the pontoons. The rear splash guard gets 2 butterfly clamps for extra support of the motor. The nuts should be to the outside so they're easy to get to and also prevent scratches or snags on clothing or skin of the boat passengers. Installing the bench seat. Always leave the 2 rear handrails loose in order to properly install the bench seat. The legs and hardware for the bench seat will be wrapped and found inserted in the underside of the bench seat. There will be 4 legs with the bench seat. We use battery boxes to level the seat at the correct height for our boat. You can use blocks, boxes, or any other item to rest the bench on while installing. Insert the lock bushings into the top slots. Here you will need a 5/32 Allen wrench. Make sure you put everything in place before tightening it. You can see how the lock bushings just slide into place. You'll want to get them even with your fingers before tightening. Then go back through and tighten your back handrails. And now your bench seat is ready for cup holders. Installing the rescue rails. Lay the rescue rails around the boat deck in the location that they will be installed. The rescue rails take one full butterfly or handrail clamp on each end. Attach them to the deck rails. Start the nuts on the butterfly clamps by hand loosely, as you're going to need room for the rescue rails to slide into the clamps. If you can find someone to help you with this task, it'll be much easier. Make sure you tighten all of the bolts. And again, be careful not to over-tighten and break the stainless steel hardware. You do want the rescue rails tight though. If there is an emergency and someone needs to grab hold of a rescue rail, you certainly want the rescue rails to be able to support that weight. Installing the motor mount. Here are the tools you will need for installing the motor mount on the rear splash deck of the Hotwoods Fish N Sport. The motor mount bolts right onto the rear splash deck. Mark the holes with a permanent marker. Remove the motor mount and drill the pilot holes with a 1/8 inch bit. Then use a bit that fits the pre-drilled holes in the motor mount. After drilling the holes, the bolt should slip right through. Use the included lock nuts and make sure to add a washer on the front and the back. You'll need to drill the 4 mounting holes through the bottom into the splash deck. The motor mount bolts use a 1/2 inch wrench or socket. You'll need a backup wrench on the bottom to hold things in place as you tighten them. Incidentally, there are drain plugs in the bottom of each pontoon on one end or the other. If needed, they can be removed with an Allen wrench for repair or maintenance. When all the bolts are tightened, the motor mount will be solid. Call Hotwoods for more information about the Fish N Sport 510 Compact Pontoon Boat, or if you have more questions about assembly, at 1-877-407-8645. And find us at www.hotwoods.com.